r/askreddit. Serious those of you who have actually signed up for and used meat and duck sites. Have they worked? And if so, what was your experience like? I used Adult Friend Finder several years ago while I was in college, and before AF turned into nothing but bots having subreddits with each other. I took a shotgun approach. Message everything with a vag in a 20-mile radius and wait. The one response that turned into something was a chick who was about 10 years my senior. Solid 6/10 in her profile picture, which was apparently several years old. She was a little chubby in the picture, and when we eventually met up at a bar, she was large. The kind of large where just everything part of her body had tits on it. She also smelled. We both drank a beer, and I made up some bullshit about having to leave for work. We said goodbye in the parking lot and she blew me a little bit by her Jeep. She also sneakily stuck her hand in her purse and squirted perfume on her hand and rubbed it all over my junk. It wasn't until years later that I realized that she was trying to get me busted for cheating with her. Even though I was single at the time. She thought that's why I was leaving. I stopped trying to get those sites to work after that. She wasn't trying to get you busted for cheating. She was testing for sores. That's kind of smart actually, considering the circumstances. TL. Doctor met a girl. She gave me a kidney. I'd been on Adult Friend Finder a long time ago and met some cool people. So a couple of years ago, having recovered from a long relationship, I gave it another go and ended up meeting a very cool girl. We slept together on the first date, but things didn't end up going in a romantic direction and we remained good friends. Flash forward a year to my needing a kidney because of a genetic disease, and my doctors had me go find potential donors to be tested for transplant. The doctors literally said bring us any warm body, which should probably also be Adult Friend Finder's motto. A bunch of my friends got tested, but my adult friend I found turned out to be a very good match and wanted to donate. The surgery was over the summer. I'm in fantastic shape now, and she's a remarkable person for doing this for me. And now I can always joke I've been inside of her. Now she's inside of me. Holy hit, that's lucky. It's very lucky. I'm incredibly grateful. I've been curious also how it's possible that we weren't meant to be a romantic match because we were too genetically similar. But that also meant we became fast friends. I ended up getting arrested. It turns out the girl lied. She was 15, but said she was 18. She duckingly lied on her profile. Lied to me in person and text messages. Even when the cops got there and were outside, she assured me she was 18. This was a while ago in the early 2000s. I was 23 or 24/0 I think. We were getting it on in the back of my car, and a cop comes up and talks to us. She looks young, so he has her come sit with him in his car. We were parked up a hill in a spot where people go to do things like that. Another cop comes over, tells me I'm under arrest, and I spend a night terrified in the police station, being interviewed by detectives the whole night, having my peen and balls swabbed, etc. Fortunately, the girl was honest and her parents were lenient, so I got to leave the next morning with no charges and nothing on my record. Scary as hit though. If a girl looks 18, you don't just assume she is. Be careful about that hit. Edit. Apparently some people don't believe me. If I wanted karma, I'd make up some hit and use my main act for that. I'm 38 now. Quite successful and have no need to gain internet points on a brand new act. Also, the minimum age to be a member on the site was 18. She put 18 as her age. That and the fact that she was honest to the cops after, and her parents didn't want to press charges, resulted in my being able to leave the next morning. I was going to go to the local jail/prison, not sure what the difference is, but that was all resolved before then. Fortunately, they did impound my car, so the detective had to take me home, and I was able to get it later that day. Edit again. I don't know the official reason they let me go, but they did, and I was not going to question that. I got lucky, and that's all that matters to me. Last edit thanks to the redditor that pointed this out. The California Supreme Court ruled in a 1964 case that a statutory ape defendant's reasonable good faith belief that the victim was over the age of consent and had consented to X was a defense to the charge of statutory ape. People v. Hernandez. 393 p. 2nd 673, 1964. Holy hit. Man. You're extremely lucky you're not classified a child predator right now. I'm glad for you. If he had proof she lied multiple times, no DA is going to put that to trial. I used Craigslist and found a private glory hole in someone's house. I went there like 10 times and she was amazing. Edit. It was most likely a dude, but I'm pan-XL, so it doesn't bother me one way or the other. Not knowing is what makes it exciting though. I'd like to pretend they were a MTF trans. That's the dream. For those who want to know how it went down, I found the post on Craigslist. So I sent them a message. They had a plywood slab set up in a doorway. It had a hole in it that was covered with duct tape, so you wouldn't get a splinter. It was set up between their laundry room and kitchen I think. They would tell me what time I could come over. And they left the door to their laundry room unlocked. I would come in, stick my peen in the hole, and enjoy. It was a dude. It's a hole. If you're worried about what's on the other side of it, don't stick your peen in it. I found an actual girl on F. I was really surprised since I had cam model after cam model hitting me up. This led to chatting, then pictures, and finally a meetup. We messed around for the next 3 years. After a year she wanted to date, but I couldn't comment due to her not having a job or an education. But still I couldn't say no to a girl who could suck a golf ball through a garden hose and enjoyed it as much as I did. This led to her cutting communication with me on and off throughout the 3 years. But the last time we hooked up she told me she was pregnant about 2 weeks later. I was scared, but I was also not going to jet, because if it was mine I wanted a better life for him than she could provide. So I made her get him a paternity test. 2 weeks ago I got the results, and I'm not the father. This ended bittersweet as I was led to believe I was the father, and was prepared to be one. All the while she knew I wasn't. She may not be sure, but went with the latest partner she had. It's not always malicious. Or more likely the partner with the most stable future. Oh man. This is my time to shine kinda sorta. For reference, I'm from Chicago. Work sent me to Australia. And I took advantage of the trip to wander all over the continent and to visit New Zealand. Cause who the hell wouldn't? Anyway, I had Tinder the whole time I was there. And I used the tried and true always swipe right method. I made some interesting matches, including a girl named Penelope who wanted to bake my peen into a pie we did not meet, and a transgender MTF who accused me of having a fetish when I said that I wasn't interested in hooking up with a trans XL person. Nothing against you. More power to you. And you should have all the same rights as everyone else, but that doesn't mean I'm interested in sticking my ding ding dong in your hoo-ha. Anyway, I matched with a pretty cool chick my last night in Brizzy. Sadly, she had work the next day and I left for New Zealand the next day. So we never met IRL. But we kept chatting and added one another on Snapchat and eventually Facebook. I went back to the States. Kept chatting. After about 3 months of this, I asked her if she'd like to meet me on a travel date since, you know, I liked her. I suggested Hawaii, because that's halfway between us both and would be a cool place to explore. She immediately replies, how about Iceland instead? Note, Iceland is the opposite of Hawaii in almost every way, shape, and form. Colder. Totally different, though still pretty, landscape. Beautiful Nordic people instead of beautiful oceanic people. They use almost all consonants to name things compared to Hawaiians who use almost all vowels. Pretty much the most different choice from Hawaii you could choose. But I went with it, despite my brain saying, this is an excellent way to lose a kidney. Seth. We were there for 2 weeks. It was actually awesome. We drove the ring road and camped and were intimate those nights. I was so happy. Because one night I got to use the that was ducking intense pun. She just looked at me in disgust and said, get out of me. Which was fair. We still talk and she is still disgusted with me for that pun. 10 tenths. Would recommend. TL. Doctor, met a chick on Tinder in Australia. Met her IRL in Iceland and said stupid hit to her. And what man? Don't leave me hanging like that. I used it years ago. Met some amazing people. Although it's just a duck site. I made extremely close friends that I'm still friends with almost 10 years later. And when I'm feeling bored or horny, I can ask them for pictures. It's like I have personal pornsters. All this time I assumed AF was nothing but a marketing platform for novelty services. I'm amazed there are humans of both genders on there. I used OkCupid to hook up with about 30 guys in a 2-month period. Some of them multiple times but mostly not. I ended up ditching the site for a short-lived, unfortunate relationship with one of the guys and went back after my next current wonderful relationship became open and turned my account back off about a week later when I realized why I was glad I'd left the site. It's made to be an addiction. You get all the X and or human connection you want. But these sites are based on a quantity model, as in to have any hope of finding quality. Unless you beat the odds. You have to play by quantity. You have to go on as many dates as possible to have one really, truly good one. Not that most of the dates were bad. Just that you have so many mediocre or fine or pretty alright dates that you start to forget what a good one feels like. Now I'm a classy slut, so I almost always vetted these guys with food or coffee before taking them back to my place. So I got really good at small talk. By the end of 2 months I started loathing all of them. I remember sitting in a cafe, staring at the steam from my coffee cup, listening to a guy I liked well enough, we both liked books by the Lost Generation and bad horror movies, talk about his relationship with his mom, which I had started by bringing up my mom. And I realized how ducking bored I was. I didn't give a hit about his mom or anybody else's. I caught myself actively waiting for him to stop talking so that it would be my turn again. Because this was the third guy this week I'd heard talk about his mom and he just cared so much more than I ever could. And I said to myself, this isn't me, I can't be this hitty to people. I got over 1,000 profile views a day on OkCupid. I got on average messages from 30 different guys a day. Even winnowing out the hey BB want some duck messages that left me with at least 5-10 prospects a day. And I wasn't being all that picky at first. Then I started being picky. But only about looks. Because I realized after 20 or so first dates that I had no way to figure out how our personalities would really mesh until I met him in person. So I decided, screw it. I'll just try to cut down on the overwhelming number of meaningless, shallow interactions by only having them with the exceptionally hot guys. I hated myself for that, too. The crazy thing is, I went into this thinking I was going to learn a lot about having X. All I really learned was how to have bad X. Or pretty okay X. I never had truly amazing X during these hookups. It was, above all, mediocre. These guys would all kiss poorly. Likely sloppily. And there was lots of lead up to the X. But I wouldn't call it foreplay, rather. It was an extended makeout session where we tested how far the other person was willing to go. And once we were both naked it was okay time for the main event, peen in vag. I gave a little head here and there when requested, or I felt like it, but I never received head. I asked a few times and they'd give a few half-hearted licks before saying I can't wait and going to the PIV. Then, I swear to God, every one of these guys became a literal jackhammer. They went for, above all, speed. They ducked me as fast as they ducking could. Not as hard as they could. Not as well as they could, fast. I had to stop myself from laughing at it so often. I felt like a masturbation tool. One that was worshipped like a goddess and treated like a human being. Just, they all had X, like they were wanking into me. Because they didn't know a thing about how to have good X from anybody's perspective but their own. And don't get me wrong. Most X with most people is bad the first time. You just don't know how the other person works. So a word to the wise guys out there, the first time you duck a girl, do everything as slowly as you can. Get to the X slower. Rub her clit first. Very softly and slowly. Eat her out a little. Kiss all the way down her body. When you get to the PIV, don't be a jackhammer. Like Tenacious D says. Duck her gently. Move slowly. Every movement of every muscle made with intention. It will be amazing. For you and for her. She will call you back. You're not going to be able to be a porn star that first night. But you can be sensual. And ducking great. I met all kinds of guys. Guys who were in the game the same way I was and just wanted a few rounds of Smash Brothers before bouncing their balls off my clit while they doggy styled me. Guys who stuck to missionary with a passion and were heartbroken literally when I wouldn't return their calls after a one night stand that was a walk in the park with a joint, a movie in bed and some ex the first day we met. Guys everywhere in between. But in the end there were so many guys that they all just felt kind of the same. I liked a lot of them a lot and would have probably dated them a while in more classical circumstances, but there just wasn't any real spark. And I was glad I had gotten the ex out of the way so quickly. Once that question was answered, it was easier to see them for who they were instead of who I wanted them to be. The personality judgment equivalent of ducking them with the lights off so their body looks however I want it to look. Would I go back in time and do it all again? Hell yeah. Would I do it again now? No ducking way. My final lesson, wear a duckine condom. Duckine do it. I got tested for STDs after all of this and somehow miraculously caught none, and that's a miracle because I never used a condom because I'm on the pill and he never brought it up. And I always thought I was the kind of person who would be like, duh. Of course I'd always use a condom. STDs are scary. And then I never did, and that duckine terrifies me. And none of them did either. Even though they were all very smart guys. Most of them didn't even ask if I was on birth control. Guys. We have to be smarter about this. Okay. Edit. Damn it. Both of my biggest gilded comments are about my past wanton promiscuity. Thanks for the gold. Stranger. Most sex with most people is bad the first time. You just don't know how the other person works. People always forget this part. It's awkward. As a guy you might come too fast. Or not at all out of nervousness or having had that fourth cocktail. Sure. There's the excitement of something new. But it's like a new shoe, you need to wear it a few times before it fits right. This was a great read. If you haven't written extensively about this subject, you'd make a great columnist / blogger / podcaster / etc. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.